Let's go with the green flag. Is that a Supra? Who did it? Come on. Dead white.
Hello everybody, what we are doing today is trying to find a possible air leak on the KZ650. I don't know exactly what the problem is. The issue I've been having is it seems to be running lean, and it's not all the time and it's not real bad. It's just not pulling quite as hard as it was a month ago. I don't think 10 degrees, 15 degrees of ambient temperature outside is going to make it run different. That's ridiculous. This isn't a jet. It's a 40-year-old bike. But what I've been reading, a lot of issues people are having with getting them to run a little lean is worn out carb holders and well, I can't see them. I wanted to show them on here, but maybe we can see if I can get my stupid head out of the way. You can't, so whatever. Where the rods go in for the choke, the rubber boots there leak air. So it's not surging really. It's just, especially in higher RPMs, it just feels like it's running out of power. And I don't know what it is. Like, I was running home about 2 weeks ago, I guess it was, and I was in full tuck, running about 75, 80 with it twisted all the way on. And I was running into a 15 mile an hour or so headwind, but I felt like it should have had a little bit more pull and it would not accelerate over 75. And of course I rolled off of it and I let it go. But as I've been rebuilding this slowly and replacing this or that and fuel lines and the air cleaner and coils, wires, caps, going through the carbs and checking them, I've pulled these carbs off twice now, and I'm just afraid that the rubber is just 40 years old and dry. So we're going to change them. This is what we are replacing with. These are just from Z1 Enterprises and what they called for. Got all 4 of them. We're just going to change them and keep the originals like I've kept everything I've taken off this bike. Should be pretty easy. We're going to pull the tank off. To pull the tanks off one of these, you haven't done it before, all you got to do is lift up on the back and it slides off. And we got to disconnect our fuel line and the vacuum line off the petcock. Make sure I'm aiming here. Our fuel line and then the vacuum line off the petcock. And I'm just going to set the tank aside, get some visibility, and take the air cleaner out. And that's how I pull all of these boots off. And they're very simple as well. I just roll the spring back like that. Well, I don't need to show you how. I'm going to do this for each one of them. And then I just pull the boot back off into the air box to get them completely out of the way. And we loosen all 4 of the screws on the clamps, and the carbs will just come right out. And then of course you got the throttle cable that you have to disconnect, but that's also very simple to do. And then we pull all our lines out. But that's what we're going to do right now, and hopefully she'll run just a little bit sweeter. A video coming soon will be the valve cover gasket, because as you can see, it's weeping just a little bit, especially if I run it hard. But that's another video for another time. So let me get the tank off and disconnect the fuel lines, and we'll come back. Well, just like I said, all I did, I slide the spring back and I just pull the intake boot back into the airbox to get them out of the way. So the next thing we have to undo are the throttle cables. And to do those, I'm trying to remember the correct way that I do this, because you don't want to mess up your throttle adjustment. And I've got mine set. I'm pretty sure we're good to just loosen the top nut. And that way we'll get all the slack we need, and we can remove the cables. Do not touch the bottom nut, because then you're gonna have to get all your slack and stuff back out. And I've got mine set to just where I want. So it's 10 millimeter on both of these top nuts, and just back them all the way off so we can get slack, and let's remove the throttle cables. Simple enough. Pulled the carbs off, and I've removed all the clamps and set them aside. Need a large Phillips. We're gonna remove the carb holders, and these actually feel pretty good, so now I don't know what the problem was. Back to square one. I was hoping they're gonna look more dried out than a Mona Lisa, but here we are. They're still flexible. Now I'm irritated because I don't know what the problem is with the bike, but we're gonna replace them because we have it off. Just a large Phillips, and we're going to take each one off and replace it with the new ones, and shouldn't take but a minute. As you can see, that did not go as planned. Could not get these screws to break loose. Could not get them to break loose. You can even see they were getting skinned up. So I did what you have to do. Started taking shit off. Airbox, super easy. It's 2 bolts. One of them was right back here, and the other one was in plain view. These brackets went into the side of the airbox, and the whole thing slid back. Once you took these bolts out, I slid the airbox about 2 inches forward, and these slid out of the back of the airbox. As you can see where they were slid in, like this. Slid them out, slid the airbox forward, and pulled it out. How did I get them out? With my impact drill. Got the biggest bit I had, put it in, they came out just fine. But they were really, really on there. But now they are off, so I can actually, whew, they're really on there, aren't they? Holy moly. It's probably originals, so it took me longer to take the fucking airbox off, and it's gonna be to switch those, but here we go. Just touching base and trying to record this since I get yelled at a bunch. There's 2 of them. They're going on really easily. Just put some penetrating fluid, especially in the top screws, and it goes together much easier. So this just seems to be one of those jobs where it takes twice as long to take it apart as it does to put it back together. The rest of this thing should throw back together pretty quick. So I'm gonna finish putting these on and get the airbox back in. So when you poke your carbs on, try to make sure that they're pretty straight. When you're slipping them on, they went on nice and easy. Still need to tighten all my clamps, I haven't done that yet. But make sure that you get them on all the way, seated all the way forward. And since we had this box off, I have now noticed that they're elongated. So I can probably get the intake boots on there better, because I have some back to front room. So get your overflow hoses tucked back in under there so they're out the way. Next thing I'm going to do is my throttle cables, because they're the next pain in the neck. Put the throttle cables back on there and tighten them back. Try to get them as close as to how they were, so you don't have any more adjustments that you're gonna have to do than necessary. I mean, they're still gonna be a little bit off, but hopefully we've retained our settings for the most part. So we're gonna put those on, and then we got to do these boots. But don't forget to, you know what? Scratch all of that. Jared's retarded. Throttle cables, and then we're gonna do these. Don't want to forget. I want to do these next. This is all this is last. Just there, and then fuck with the rest. So I went on ahead and put them back on. I did notice that this boot of mine is starting to, I don't know how to describe it. It's not going far enough up on the carb. So to just make sure I'm getting a good seal, because it doesn't look like it was. And I do have the airbox moved all the way forward. I know everybody's gonna freaking absolutely fry me. I had some electrical tape left, and I've gone around this. It's not permanent. I'm not going to leave it that way. Let me be very clear on that. It is temporary. I have done it to make sure I've got a good air seal so I can run this thing. Oh, I'd like to ride it to work either Monday or Tuesday, if at the very latest Wednesday, and today is Saturday. I would like to get it on the road and run it and see if this has solved the problems, is putting these new boots on. And without running it, I don't know. And if this is the issue, and then I take this off, the electrical tape, and I take it back off and it runs like shit again, well, then that's clearly where it's sucking air right there. So anyway, that's where we're at. All that's left is to put the tank back on here and hook up fuel lines and put the side covers and all that stuff back on there that I had to pull off real quick to pull the airbox out. But that's all there is to it. It's very, very simple. And again, the bolts to take off the airbox, I'll show you. There's one of them right there behind your starter solenoid. And the other one's even easier to get to. Right here. Don't mind my zip tie. I have that because my fuse box is broke. And let's just tuck that in there like that so you didn't see that. You and the other 30 people didn't see that. So that's the other bolt for the airbox. And just make sure that we've got all of our clamps tight on the carb holders. All of our intake boots are back on, springs are back on, everything's nice and tight. Our throttle cables, and mine did lose a bit of adjustment, but I have fixed them where I've got that little bit of slack you can see in the cable there. But it seems to be all right, so throw the tank on, and there we have it. Tank goes on super easy, like I said. It just slips on, and then it pushes down in the back, and your side covers just pop back on. But if you don't have to take the airbox out like I had to, you're not going to have to mess with anything back here. So let's go over everything. Make sure you get your vacuum line hooked up correctly from the back of the carbs. The one that goes all the way back in there, the farthest one. If I can touch it without getting in the way of the camera. This one right here goes in that back port is your vacuum hose, and it goes to the back of your petcock unless you've changed to manual. Of course, your main fuel line goes down the bottom, and this is just your breather. It goes back this way. So that's all there is to this one. Not too much of a big job, even for being 40 years old, and I had to get out a whole mess of tools to get those intake boots off, but that's all there is to this one. Fairly easy job to do. Doesn't cost much, and unfortunately with the age of these bikes, especially with how hard some of them have been run or have just been sitting, both are going to make the rubber extremely hard and difficult to make a seal. So it's changing out these rubber things is just a routine maintenance item when you get to something as old as this. Even though this one's only got 10,000 miles on it, it's still sitting, 40 years old. You got to start changing stuff. So I'll shut up now. Thanks for watching, everybody.
Come on, boss! Come on! Yeah!